Hello, everyone, and welcome to a new episode of E-Talks. All right, my name is Zainab Oselik, and I'm the host of E-Talks. And today once again, we have a wonderful guest and a wonderful speaker. So I hope you guys are all doing okay. Today, we will be motivated, hopefully. And today, we have our guest, Paul Muench. So Paul is a Gallup-Certified Strengths Coach and a national board-certified teacher with, bachelor's in secondary education and master's in reading education and a CAS in educational leadership. He has taught for more than 30 years, and he has taken his passion for developing future leaders from the classrooms to the greater community. He has developed and led numerous leadership development programs for businesses, school administrations, statewide athletic programs, and nonprofit organizations where he teaches motivation and team building in addition to identifying individuals' unique leadership abilities. Paul's years as a public educator and athletic coach serve as a foundation for his innate ability to shape leaders from all backgrounds. So we have a wonderful guest today, and our moderator is also awesome. So we have Esra, a 25-year-old behavior analyst from San Francisco, a believer in community organization, and a sunflower enthusiast. So I would like to welcome both Paul and Esra to the stage now. Welcome.
Hi, hello, Paul.
Hi.
Hi, Zainab.
Thank you, Zay. Hi,
Paul, how
Esra.
are you feeling? How are you feeling?
Oh, I feel good.
Good. Okay, I
We're-
get like butterflies sometimes, so I was doing like breathing and like some tapping just to feel grounded. Do you
Well,
do any
it's-
do you do any? I guess like when you have like those big presentations that you're about to give, right, during your leader, and I'm jumping right into it.
No. I think you're right. Yeah. What do I do to get?
Yeah. Go. I'm just gonna ask this.
I don't think I've ever spoken. I'm talking about even in class where I was a little bit nervous, and I think nervousness is a prerequisite for success. There's nothing we've ever done in our life that we're proud of that we weren't nervous before we did it, and so when I get those nerves, it's because I care about your audience. I care to come through for Zay and hopefully say some things that that we can all learn from. And I look forward to hearing from you as well, Esther, with your background. And I gotta tell you, for someone my age, I just kind of think, wow, when I started teaching, would I've ever dreamed that I'd be connected speaking to somebody in San Francisco, and then, from my former students in Rochester, New York, and I'm in beautiful Syracuse, New York, if you've ever been. So, no, I think there is something to it. I think everyone comes up with their own style of how to get ready. I think the one thing, I get nervous if I'm not nervous, if that makes any sense.
Yeah.
Of course, if if it's something that's overwhelming you, that's a whole different talk for someone who's more of an expert than me. But that nervousness, I think is good. I think it's good for students to be involved in the arts, theater, sports, something where clubs where you have to go in front of people, debate. I think those activities when people are young, coming through their and coming of age, to work on those things. So when we really have to talk about important things in life, that works out. That's a big part of what we do, because we work with student groups as well.
Yeah. And so when you said nervousness is the precursor of success, what that kind of reminded me of, and the way that you explained, like, it's kind of like that drive for you to do better, and like it's kind of telling you that you do care about,
Yes.
this presentation or project or something that you're working on. Is it almost like, do you have yourself asking those before you got to this stage? Now I'm sure you had a learning curve and some growing pains to deal with it. So when you were, let's say 20, 30 years ago, like when those nervousness did come up, were you asking yourself those questions? Like,
yeah, I think it's great that you said that. The idea is, at what point is it debilitating, where I've become so nervous that I worry so much about what others are thinking that I can't remind myself of what I'm thinking and what I'm trying to present. I've been honored to be asked to speak, so nobody else can do it. So there's an old saying: it doesn't matter if the horse is blind, load the wagon. just do it.
Yep.
And think of yourself from a presenting standpoint of what is the need for the audience. It's always the message more than the messenger that we inspire the people we work with, and vice versa. Because this series that you have, and I've watched the old ones and was involved in the one episode where we were talking about relief. It's just whenever you get people together, three things can happen. We can all feel better for what happened, nothing at all, or feel worse. But I always feel better after having seen the interaction of you and your colleagues and the speakers, and so I'm really honored to be a part of this today.
Yeah, I'm really honored to be talking about this with you as well, just because our fields and our backgrounds kind of interlock a little bit.
They do.
In that, like, if you want to have those self-development and self-involvement skills, you need to change your behavior, and in order to do that, you need to understand why and how you're doing the things that you're doing, right?
Well, there's no doubt about it. Yep.
Yeah. Well, before we go on any further, you're okay with me calling you Paul? Do you want me to call
sure.
you?
Yeah,
Okay.
Paul. I'm not a professor. I've been in education for a long time. I'm proud of the people I've worked with and we've gone with, and read all that. But yeah, we're adults here. And that goes for the college students as well. You might be young, but you're adults. Life's pretty real. So there's no reason to say on the other side, because I'm still trying to figure out what it is to be in my late 50s. It seems like you figure out one phase of life and you're on to the next one. I'm going, oh no, what do I do? So there's always new challenges. There's never a time you just arrive. There's never a time where things just, life is a constant work. But one of the things that I think is important is this idea of what is it that I do right? What is it's naturally correct about the way I work? And start with that, as opposed to always saying, here's where I need to improve, here's where I need to improve, here's where I need to improve. And the research is showing that to some extent. And I'll go through some details on that because we could just be our own worst critics.
Yeah.
And that's not a positive source of nervousness. That is when it gets in the way. And as the title said, that's when we start thinking great accomplishments are reserved for others.
Yeah.
That bothered me when I first started teaching up in Oswego, New York, which is right on Lake Ontario, as far north as you can go in New York State. And when I first started teaching high school students, some students with incredible ability just didn't think, they just thought things were predetermined, and other people from San Francisco or the big places, they're the ones who get to do big things. And I come from a small town, so I do small things. And I'm like, but no, what is your thing? And I didn't have to deal with that as a student. When I was coming of age, my life wasn't broadcast live on TikTok, Instagram, and Snapchat to the world. And, the actor Rob Lowe had a very good line. He said to his own children, don't compare your inside to other people's outside. Mm-hmm. And I see my students doing that all the time. And who am I kidding? I see myself doing that. I see friends going on vacation. I'm like, oh, come on.
Yeah. I gotta tell you, I'm really looking forward to this presentation, just because the kids that I work with now are elementary school age, right? And I see them exhibiting these behaviors and thoughts already at age 9, at age 8, saying hurtful things to themselves. And it's like, it gets in the way of their own accomplishments and what they believe that they can do.
That's right.
I'm geared up. I'm ready. I don't know if the audience is ready. I'm buckling in. I'm ready for this ride.
All right. So I'm going to share my screen and just show this. The group I work with is called the Dinelli Partners. And it's a leadership group, and we do a lot of work with nonprofits, as they said, nonprofits, businesses, and but I went crazy saying we need to do this in schools, and we do go as young as 5th grade, so the 10-year-olds, because that's my background. So let me do the share the screen thing, and I just put it on a PDF, so we have a fighting chance of seeing this. And how are we doing there?
Looks good to me. Audience,
Perfect.
does it look good to you? Can I get a thumbs up or it looks good?
You guys still with us at home? All right. So here's really who we are, and I can just kind of use this as a background, and feel free, Ezra, to jump in whenever. But Denelli Partners was created by this idea of believing in the power and potential of people, and when people clarify what matters and leverages their strengths, leaders emerge, and anything's possible. The what matters part is incredibly important. What is it that you want to do? What is it that you define? And this could change. This could change, throughout your lives, and not who are the others. What are the other people doing? And comparing ourselves to other people, which is natural. It has to be. I do it still at this age. What is it that I want to do? And then how do I use my personal strengths to get there? And what the research shows is that most people who are successful, and when they were finding leaders, and I'll tell you a few things about leadership that I find interesting. Most people become leaders reluctantly or for reasons other than what they set out to be. For example, I'm a top student, therefore I became president of my class. I'm a top athlete, therefore I became the captain of the team. But without any leadership prerequisite ability. And in the high school age or younger, the kids you're working with, we put them in positions and never provide any concepts and training about what it actually means to lead. What does that actually mean? And how I do it would be different than how you do it, based on our personalities and our styles. Because we've seen people get those new leadership positions and they just start talking like last year's leader, and start talking like last year's captain, and it's not authentic. And so it's important to us, what we believe and what I believe is that notion that that everyone has to be leader in life at some point. Parents, older sibling. It's not something that's out there. And I'll talk about this as we move forward. But what Gallup realized in their longitudinal research on this is that there's not a profile for the perfect leader, because they tried to find it. What they found was the people who were successful leaders and successful in achievement and teamwork were people who understood their strengths and used their strengths to get toward what matters, that they had it in their mind what they're aiming for, and that a weakness is only something that gets in the way of success. So I'm not going to run around and try to fix every weakness I have. If it gets in the way of what I'm trying to accomplish as a person, as a student, as an achiever, whatever it is that you're aiming at, then you need to address it. But identify what you do right and move from there. And there's an assessment that goes with it that can help. But I don't think you need an assessment to know what is my natural way of being. And so this is just my little Denelli part. Where I'm so excited is the business world and academia. People act like these worlds are far apart, which I thought as a teacher for 34 years. But the more I get out in the business world, the more I get out in the nonprofit world, I'm starting to realize there's great people in every single one of these institutions, in a way that I used to think in education we were the only ones who really cared about society, which was totally wrong. And I'm seeing some just incredible people. How do we get, if we're going to make society better, how do we get those worlds together? How do we get higher ed, nonprofits, business, community, and say that we're all one and try to move up, which is the inspiration of this group. And then what we believe is that every one of us in life really have to do three things. We have to achieve, we have to lead, and we have to be team members. We're a society. We're people who have to work together. And the best teams don't have the most well-rounded leaders. They have the most well-rounded teams. Therefore, there's a place for all of us. You don't have to be everything.
Yeah, that's why there's always like a president, a vice president, and then like the vice president has like 2 secretaries, because it's like if that guy goes down, we need backups.
That's right. We need backups, and we need those people in our lives. Right?
Sorry, Paul. And it also
please, I want you to. Yeah.
it kind of reminds me also of like, how geese or ducks, when they migrate, they do like the V sign. So it's like one of the strongest ducks kind of goes in the front. They all kind of take the share of the load of the winds,
Yep.
the pressure. And once that duck is like tired, they switch actually. So like there's always a new duck after every so few miles and something. So that's just what that reminded me of.
I agree with you. The idea of, and especially when we start working with teams, and I think the idea is to understand ourselves first, but even teamwork is done individually. For example, in this live stream today, we have people who sent out those wonderful invites, who put together the graphics, you taking the time to interview me, people on the side, and to the outside world, we look at it as, wow, we're a well-oiled machine. And but we're all doing things individually. It just has the appearance of teamwork because we all have our well-defined roles and what we want to do and how we do it. And then we find a place that fits best for us. And when we do that in life, that's when we get in our flow. That's where we go at it. And we know this is just an incredible time, especially for those of you, in college and in your 20s. But the days of just picking a job and staying with it for the years, kind of like I did. This is like my first new job ever, and I started at the age of 57. So, I was always in education. I did different things with administration and whatnot. So,
I feel like you kind of are still in education, but now you're in like full gear, like 100% going on to, because you are teaching, a lot of people in different fields ways to not only improve like the company or improve their work environment, but it's more of like you need to find your own place in all of this like huge puzzle that we're basically a part of, right?
I love the way you said that.
Yeah, exactly.
No, I
Yeah.
love the way you said that, because even when you have that job, I mean, we worked with 4,000 people last year, and over 2,000 were students. It was really exciting, and it's one that, even with the adult leaders, emerging leaders, we teach a class at a college that has a grant that brings in local businesses. But the idea is the way you are naturally is the right way to be. The key is maximize what your abilities are. So, just speaking of some of the people we've worked with, and that's me with some of the Vermont kids. We were at the Vermont State Athletic Association, and here's some pictures of the different schools we were with. And you can see the students on the student side, they have their top strength, pointed and, written that so they can identify that. And in that one picture, you could see with the kids all wearing our Denelli shirts, for I think it's 6 of the different schools we work with the staff, then we work with the juniors, and then the top performing juniors. And I don't mean grades, I mean kids who are really kind of a cross section of the school work with the 8th graders, and we have the 8th graders work with the 5th. I love when peers work with peers to do what we call, this name it, claim it, name it. So we use the Clifton Strength Assessment, and the idea, and you can look this up. This is Gallup. Their years of research is to break everyone down into these 34 talent themes and number them 1 through 34, and your top 5 are really the ones that you work best. And it all started with Don Clifton. That's why it's called Clifton Strengths. I don't blame him. He named it after himself.
Well, I have a quick question. Sure. Is Gallup and Denelli kind of like sister companies, or is
Gallup is very, very international. All right.
Okay.
And Gallup is very, very local. Gallup is known for their research and known for their polling. And they're constantly doing research on that. And I should have said that up front, so I apologize.
Oh, no.
And so you'll always hear, you'll probably start noticing it now, in a Gallup poll, it said blah, 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 in the Gallup research. And so I'm a Gallup-Certified Strength Coach. So this was kind of a side story. I was ready to go to Washington, D.C. for 4 8-hour sessions on this, right? And I'm like, I don't know about this. And then it became virtual because of the pandemic. And I'm like, I can't do this. it was awesome. I'm that guy. When you learn something new and you drive everybody crazy with it. And it was because of the research. And Ezra, I know that is, we were talking before to the audience. I mean, that's right in our ballpark.
Yeah.
Of is this true? Because if it isn't, I don't want to just say I feel that, I think that. Hasn't been verified. But the opening question is, and this was Donald Clifton in this joint Nebraska University of Florida, basically project over time, was to say, what happens if we think about what's right with people rather than what's wrong with them? Meaning, people, if they can identify their strengths and have a language for it, then we could do something with it. We'll have that metacognitive awareness, if you will, that you've heard so often in your studies, I'm sure. And saying things, for me, my top strength is context. I look to the past to understand the present. Well, I'm a history teacher. Strategic is my second one, which maybe brought me to my world of football. I coached football. I was that guy for 34 years. But also achiever, relator, and communication. And so I was drawn to what I'm doing now because of those strengths. I don't have those strengths because I did these jobs. There's a fit. We're looking for a fit in life.
Yeah.
And I think, and that's really important. And we knew who we were when we were 7, 8, 9 years old. We might not have known all the opportunities out there, but we started to know what we're about. And it's funny watching the students and the adults talk to each other. We like to say, what's the secret to your success, and tell a great success story and relate it to your strengths. Or find out what are the other classmates' strengths. And a lot of times the kids are shy about mentioning their strengths, but their friends are going, dude, that is you. It's like, oh my God, they're like, that is, and it's affirming, because people do like the way other people are, but we've never met ourselves, so it's
exactly. I was going to say, like, if there was a way that I could, like, just clone myself or something, like meet myself, that way I can, like, get a outside perspective of what everyone else is seeing, then I can be like, oh yeah, that's obvious that my strengths are this and this. But when I'm stuck in, like, that anxiety cloud, or like that, like, oh, no one's ever done this before, or like, oh, no one that looks like me, or is from my culture, or is from my background, done this before. And it's like there's a strength in also looking at the fact that, like, oh, it's never been done before, I can be the first, right? And that's also one thing I wanted to ask too. Like, it's great that there's a strength finder. Is there, like, an assessment for, like, what could be your limits, and how to maybe, I don't know, get support for those limits, or where to get resources for those, I call them limits. I don't like, maybe weakness is something.
I love what you're saying. And I think what happens, and what the research would say, is these are your strengths, but it doesn't mean you've done anything. See, there's people who have many talents. See, here, and I'm going to slide down, and I'll show you this, because it all comes from, and this is Gallup speaking, but I believe this big time. We have to name it, claim it, name it. What are the strengths that we have? Has it been true in our life? And then how do we use those strengths to aim at what we're hoping that we can accomplish? And so when we do that, I think there's this misnomer that if my strength, for example, I have achiever. I like to achieve. I like to do those things. But that's a natural way to be for me. But we have to work at it to turn it into a strength. See, too often people have abilities, but don't use them. Mm-hmm. And those who won't are much worse than those who can't. And I think a lot of times we adhere to our weaknesses, or what you appropriately said, limitations. I think you said limits, or what was the word you used?
I said limits, but limitations.
Limits. That your limits. Sometimes we hold on to those because it prevents us from having the responsibility to achieve. And frankly, when we do that, we're happier. So I'm not trying to make anybody miserable by saying you're supposed to get into the fight. You have these abilities. They're different than other people. In fact, the chances of you and I having the same strength profile is 1 in 33 million in the same order. It's incredible.
Oh, that's
Yeah,
insane.
it's an incredible assessment. And so I love the question up here. How do you invest your talents to develop your strengths? I think the idea is to deliberately say, I'm going after this. How am I, for me, I'll use mine because I mentioned my strengths. How do I use my communication talent in order to solve an issue I don't understand? Well, I speak well with people. I relate well to people according to this. And I know it's true. I haven't had too many people look at this and say, no, I don't think so. It's been used internationally. And so the answer that our guest put in the chat, how do you invest in your talents to develop your strengths, is a life quest. I think it depends on what you're going after. And then that informs which strength is the best one to use. And I'll tell you, these things are just very helpful when you're on a job interview, college interview. Tell me about yourself. Oh man, is there ever a worse question? And you could say, I took the Gallup survey, and there's many out there, and there's many good ones. I'm just happy to be talking about this one because I believe in it. But I think it puts you on the spot to go out and really invest in it. Instead of saying, I do this wrong, this wrong, this wrong, how am I going to get here? Especially the limitations, Ezra, that I didn't have to deal with. Nobody's ever looked like me who's done this position. I've never felt, but wait a minute. People who've had these strengths have done these things before. And we talked before about some of the goals you have. We know what we want to do. We know what we have to do. How do we get ourselves to do it? And that answer is as diverse as the wonderful number of people there are on this planet. And so we have to develop our own style. But I think there has to be a deliberate everyday approach to this. And not every day has to be I'm going for the gold. But when I'm doing that, when I take my time and say, what are my intentions? Let's do it. And so these assessments, you get the signature theme report. This tells you your basic themes. And the Strength Insight Guide, if you and I had the same strength, let's say it was relator and you had relator, our write-ups would be different based on the other four of our other 4 or 5 top strengths. And so that's the one side of it. And then I'll shift into this so you can ask me some questions. I hope I'm making sense. I don't think
I'm following. I'm going with this train. Yeah.
Now, so the first part is, who am I and how does it work best? Understand there's other people who have different strengths than me, and we call these paired strengths, which is a fun activity to start hearing what other people do and how they're different. And then when you start talking about teams, the strengths, the Gallup folks have put them into 4 domains. And the 4 domains, also inform what we want to be like. Executing, those are the people who just have a list. I want to go to work. I want to get this thing done. Those were the students that used to come up to me when we were doing a group project and just say, hey, Mr. Muench, can I kind of just do this one alone? those guys, whereas the influencers are the ones who can speak for the group, and they're very important. Relationship builders remind people that we're all people. So sometimes the executors, who are wonderful, can be a wonderful person, an executing strength, can be so into work that they forget that our friend over here is having a bad day, or things like. The relationship builder's like, hey, but sometimes relationship builders have to be told, we got to get to work, man.
Yeah.
And the strategic.
These are fluid, right? These are like, I'm assuming it is because, through experiences that we have in life, through maybe just different people that were in and out of our lives. I feel like, to me, what it feels like is like we have a little bit of all of these, maybe.
Oh, no doubt.
Oh, no, we don't? Okay.
Oh, no, I said no doubt about it. No, you're absolutely, okay. I beg your pardon. You are absolutely right. The idea being they're all strengths and we have all of them, but what are the ones that are most natural? Now, my profile is a little bit strange because I actually fall into each of these. I fall into all 5, and I have 2 in strategic, relationship, influencing, and executing. And it can be annoying to people because I'm like, oh, there's got to be a better way. There's got to be a better way. And people in the executing domain are like, we just got to get it done. yeah, but what if we tried this? You're like, oh man, we were almost done. Those types of, sometimes relationship builders won't bring up issues because they're afraid of hurting their friends' feelings and their colleagues' feelings when you're not being personal. And so you need all of these. You need to have all of these. And what we do with teams is we actually grid it up. This was an athletics group, that you could see with this, and it makes sense. Look at the achiever strength. But there. I mean, even this one. Here's another athletic group. That was actually small business above competition. Boom. They're just drawn. They just love that stuff.
Yeah.
But sometimes, they lose track of they just want to go, and they forget, hey, we got a way to do things.
Yeah.
This one actually was a business that was a startup. I was using it as a demonstration for a group, but they were all achievers, but their strategic thinking is just unbelievable.
Yeah.
And so what it informs them and what it informs us individually is, what do I like to be like? And the assessment's just one piece of information. Take those things and think about yourself and say, okay, do I like to just sit down and bang things out? I did some speaking on my own when I first, retired from teaching, and it was the pandemic. And I'm like, I want to be on a team, and I want to be with other colleagues that challenge my thoughts and things like that. That's important to me. There is no right and wrong other than it's right to how you feel. So for me, I'm strategic, but I play in all three areas, and that's the fun of this, because when we think of it, and I'll turn it over to you after this, just because I wanted to give you an overview, not of what we do, but to really consider this about ourselves. What do I do best? How can I take that for a spin? How does someone difference is actually just a blessing in life? And then when I belong to a team, I have a role in what is it? What is it that and how can I make the team better? And like it says up here, leaders understand individual talents. We value that people are different. Common language, I think, is the best part of using an assessment such as this. You'll hear the DISC assessment and Myers-Briggs. There's a lot of very good ones. This is the one I'm talking about today. But we're aware, and you know what it's like being on this team. Your team almost takes on a personality and a profile, as I just showed. So, and that's when you get this culture of leadership and unity that makes life really fun, and you're not worried about trying to be like someone else, because one, you can't do it, two, you shouldn't do it, and three, it's not the research demonstrates that's not the key to success. Yeah. So your gut knows, but this gives you a deliberate way of saying, when looking at your strengths, I think that's a key way to roll, as opposed to saying I'm wrong here, wrong here, wrong here. And I don't mean to just like, let's all hold hands and be happy. We don't have to improve ourselves. No. You're going to move this way, and when something gets in the way, you better fix it.
Yeah.
Fix it using your strengths. So always think in terms of what I do well, what I do well, what I do well. And I'll turn it to you in this one. I always used to say, we keep winning strategy, we change losing strategy.
Yeah.
The people on this call, you have been successful over and over again. How do you use that and be deliberate about it in your work? So.
I was just going to say the gut feeling that you mentioned. I think gut feelings are like intuition, right? It's a huge step into kind of exploring what your strengths are. And I think that's what people are very, I personally think that's what's holding them back. Like, for example, I'm not a professional dancer by any means, but I understand the importance of what movement is for my body, right? So I play a song and I just go do my little thing in my room, and I feel good afterwards. And one day I was just like recording myself, and I like put on my story on my Instagram, and a couple of my friends were like, I really like these dancing videos you put. They make me so happy. And I'm like, you can do it too, right? Like it's free. And that's when they're like, no, no, not really. What? And I'm like, I never took a dance class in my life. You just have to kind of start exploring. But it did take. I'm 25. It did take me a little uh, bit of a long time in my eyes to kind of start even understanding what my intuition felt like, and then trusting it enough to understand what my strengths were. Do you, when you're having these like presentations, or
Mhm.
when you're having these leadership talks, do you encounter a lot of people kind of saying that, like,
Yes, and this is not a spectator sport. So when we get together with big groups, small groups, we it's probably 50% us presenting.
mhm,
The secret to my success, going back, and I keep thinking about what your team is asking. Think about successes you've had and how it related to your strengths, and how that works, and then what is it that I want to do, and how do I get to that next step, because that's working on it. That's working on it. What are strengths someone else has that I really admire? It
mm,
doesn't mean, and how do I ask them?
yeah,
How do I ask them? Like, some people naturally don't like to talk to other people. I do. I love that, but it doesn't mean they can't. But they might have to be more strategic about how I do it. And I used to, and Zay could tell you this. I mean, I used to have the kids come in, and they'd have to say hello to two different students every day when they walked into class, just to practice that
yeah,
and say their name, and they started to get better at it. If but they do it just through, okay, I'm going to do this because I have to, as opposed to just naturally doing it. It
yeah,
doesn't mean you can't do it. See, this the key is, how am I going to do it the way I am? And the way you are is the right way to be, and that's how you feel. But we're required to do certain things in life, and areas we want to aim at. We say, I'm going to improve this way, but I'm going to do it by doing it my way.
hmm,
So, you don't all of a sudden have to be this big talker to be a leader.
yeah,
But there's things that you have to do. So the gut is right. There's a lot of research on that our feelings come before our words. There's an old saying: make big decisions with your heart and little decisions with your head. We know, you, like when you decide to go into school, or you decide where you're going to go, it hit you one day, boom. I'm like, here's where I'm going. And then
yeah.
you try to come up with words to tell mom and dad why, why I picked that. But you already knew where you're going. Uh, you know, and so,
Well, mine was pretty easy. I was doing nursing, and I failed my chemistry class, and I took it one more time. And in the middle of the semester, I was like, "Mom, Dad, I'm switching to psychology."
there you go.
And we're like, "I think you should." But I totally understand you. It's that, and that gut feeling is almost like there's no fear behind it. There's no question. It comes out of nowhere. I like how exactly how you said it. It just comes, and it's like you feel and you know that it's right. Yeah.
No doubt about it, and go with that. I mean, we know who we are. Keep yourself in the neighborhood of what you like. If you want to be people, some people love people, but they want to work alone. You don't want to, or if you're someone like me, I can't be. People say, "Oh, I want to work remote." It's like, for me, no, 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 no.
Yeah.
I need. And it's fine for my beloved bride. She, my wife loves that. So it's very, very interesting. Life is really, really fun. Let's take it for a spin and say, this is who I am. Great
Mhm.
accomplishments are not reserved for others. I don't be afraid to be great. I just
Yeah.
throw that out there. I just believe that. And that's why I'm happy to speak to everyone on this today. And it's a reminder for myself. I mean, you teach best what you need most to learn, is
Yeah.
Richard Bach said that. And I always like that quote.
Man,
Um,
I wish I had like a Jiminy Cricket that told me the same things you're telling me sometimes when I'm in that zone. Because you know what? Yeah, like there's times when and I'll say this personally, there's times when I'm believing in my strengths, and then I don't know why this like obstacle of doubt comes by, but I've done pretty good of just being like push through. You've gone through all of
that's
this
right.
before. Like you finished college, you've done your masters, like you've go for it kind of thing. I think that's also important. And looking back in your old accomplishments of being like,
Oh,
I was there and
mhm.
I got here. There's no reason why I can't go over there.
Well, that's why we want young people to have actual achievement over difficult things. Now we can laugh at some of the things young people stress out about. I mean, opening my locker, I really wondered if that thing would ever get open. I was in 5th grade and I thought about it all day. Am I going to be able to get my stuff out of my locker? And I laugh about it now, but I was
Oh,
that was I was pretty nervous about that. And once you do that, okay, the next time I face a locker, I'll do better. Next time I talk to somebody, I'll do better. Next time, but like you said, Ezra, so well, that's why we do the secret to my success, for example, Gallup exercise that we think is so important. Remind ourselves of past success. How did I do it? And how can that inform how I approach the new challenge ahead? And that's the key. And that's how we work on our strengths, going back to to investing it. That we can't leave those in the closet. Where our strengths are going to win the day, not becoming someone new, not trying to be someone else, but really pushing ourselves in that direction.
thank you so much. Let me finish writing this note because that was a good point. How did I do it in regards to past achievements, and how can it inform me to move forward with this new
This new
achievement?
challenge. And we got to have a new challenge. And if we don't know where we're going, we're not going to get there. So, but you can always change the route, as I do many times when I'm on Google Maps. And I take a wrong turn.
Rerouting. Yeah.
All right.
You got to take a detour. It's like, all right, cool. I'll take a detour.
All right,
Fine.
that didn't work. So, yeah, that's the key and kind of a basic thing. But, of my approach. But I think we've all been through a lot over the last few years, and I think it's time to help each other get out there and take those appropriate risks to try to achieve some things that we're really going to be proud of. And all the SMART goal type stuff that other people will speak of that all about, that idea of start with the end in mind. And if I get here, how will I feel? So I'm here. I want to get here. This is going to be tough. Let's fight through it. Like you said, I'm going to just power through it because I've done it before.
Mhm.
And we're going to help each other. I think that's the other thing. Help each other, reach
Yes.
out to each other and say, how would you do this? Here's how I'm approaching it. And then just listen and take the ones that work.
That's amazing. Thank you so much, Paul. I don't know about the rest of the audience, but I feel like I got my money's worth, even though this was free. Like, I'm being serious. I think I just needed this pep talk. This past week was just a lot for me work-wise, and this was just a really good pep talk for me. I love the presentation, and I loved your own, like, hey, we have to do this methodically, but we can be human about it and like embrace our mistakes and embrace the limits that we may or may not have. I love that.
Well, thank you. I've really enjoyed meeting you. This is the one sad thing about. It's great. Without this technology, what would we be doing? This wouldn't have happened. But it'd be so fun, to get everybody together in person. But we have all these people in our midst, and let's remind ourselves, especially if you're someone like me who is extroverted, obviously. It's kind of our task to reach out to people and say, hey, what's going on? How are you doing? And help those folks along. At the same time, we're going to get some great insight of not everything has to be, let's win today.
Yeah.
Sometimes you can just watch a show or something.
Sometimes it's okay to rest. Like, that's what I'm telling myself. I'm just rest today. It's fine.
Yes. Good for you. But I think that's important.
Before we end the show, I do have some special questions for you. Therefore, do you want me to go like?
Just go.
Okay.
Yeah, let's.
So first one is, can you tell me what your favorite color is?
You got to go with green.
Yes.
That's that was our football team's colors, and I was a football coach, so everything I had became green. So I might as well embrace it.
Green is also, I think, a color that reminds you of like abundance and natural systems of flow, and I think that's a great like fitting color for you.
Thank
you. Another question that I have for you is, what are your 3 favorite books?
3 favorite books is so tough. I cheated by looking at some of the other presentations. So I was just kept thinking about what would approach one. My list, I still don't know what I'm going to say, but I did love this book called Illusions by Richard Bach. I actually just quoted that book a second ago. You teach best what you need most to learn. It was a book that I read when I was in high school, and then I read it again in college, and I read it again. It's a very short book, and it's kind of a fantasy type of book, but kind of a good philosophy on life. And I think as you're coming of age, there's parts you agree with, don't agree with, but it always had me thinking, and I always enjoyed that. I think for the listeners, Strengths Finders by John Rath, and make sure I have his first name right, but it's Rath. Let me do this. Yeah, Tom Rath, excuse me. And that's where you can, if you want to read more about some of the basic stuff that I did. And then my last one, every now and again, read a classic, read something challenging and old. The one that always came to mind was Les Miserables by Victor Hugo. But I read an abridged version when I was in 6th grade, and I was kind of a sports guy, so I wasn't going to read it. And I just read this thing, and it was abridged, obviously, age appropriate. But I'm like, this thing's great. And then when they made a musical, I was all mad. I'm like, what, is Jean Valjean going to be singing? And then, yes. Other people are like, there was a book. Tale of Two Cities was on my other one. So I just that's kind of an eclectic list there that might be some fun. And with people who are in college, grad school, and starting new careers, they're pretty quick reads, except Les Mis. Les Mis is that's weightlifting for books.
Yes. Yes. Well, no, I appreciate you. I think I'm actually gonna look into Strengths Finder by Tom Rath. I'm really interested.
And feel free to reach out to me, and the listener can. I would love to. If somebody emailed me and wanted to go over their report, I'll do it.
Oh,
why
okay.
not?
Before I go to the next questions, is the assessment free? Is that Strengths?
That assessment, you got to give your money to Gallup, and I think it's a big. I think if you buy the book, I think there's the assessment's price off, but I think it's $19.99 for the assessment, and we include that when we work with groups. But I think it's worth it with the $20 if you're gonna. Read it, take the top 5. You don't need all 34. Do the top 5. If you get into it, you can go to the 34, but that's between their company. But I think you'll find it interesting, and it's a good insight to yourself. The only thing I'd caution, people always say, wow, this is exactly right. A few things they don't agree with, well, then that's not true. If you don't think it's true, it's not. We're not trying to, it's not a horoscope. We're not trying to guess your age at the fair, kind of thing. So. And people can reach out to me.
Oh, perfect. Thank you so much, Paul. Yep. My next 2 questions. What are your 3 favorite movies?
3 favorite movies. Okay. You got to go everyone has to watch Dr. Zhivago at some point in their life. They probably knew I was going to answer. I always taught that in class, and it's about life during the Russian Revolution. And by the end, you wonder what any of the characters are doing. I think on the 3 movies. By the way, the best movie that I saw in my childhood had to be Rocky. And give it a shot. I'm not talking about the second, third, and fourth, and fifth one. The first one, you talk about somebody following his strengths. Sylvester Stallone, who had trouble speaking as a child and so on, always wanted to be an actor, couldn't get a role, so he wrote Rocky, and they were going to give the role to James Caan. They were going to give the role to other people, and he said, no, I'm playing Rocky or I'm not selling it. And he was broke, and they offered him up to $350,000. So finally, when the movie was made, his first check was $1 million, and nobody knew who he was. Nobody knew the screen, and so it's and the music was written by a guy who was 26 years old, Bill Conti, and I just think the making of the film was as unlikely as the actual story itself, So that one was fun, and then I think I am kind of a baseball guy. Everybody has to watch Field of Dreams at some point in their life too. All right, so
I don't know why for some reason I thought you were going to mention Sandlot. The Sandlot.
Sandlot's fun.
Yeah.
Field of Dreams. I had to walk that one off after I saw that movie. I'm like, this is really interesting. So those were just for fun. I mean, if you wanted to get, deep and motivated, Rocky will get you motivated. I guess that's probably why I was thinking of Rocky.
Even the
This
soundtrack.
idea that he wasn't supposed to win, but there's only about 10 minutes of boxing in the film. It's really kind of a it's really deeper than I remembered. I watched it again the other day. I'm going, this is no joke. So it's always good to have those motivational type of films, to get you fired up. And you can see I get, excited just about everything. So.
All right, Paul, last question for you, and I'm letting you go.
Uh-oh.
Last question is, what are your thoughts on art? And will art save the world?
Yeah, every society has a world history teacher. Those old civilizations come and go. They're always still embedded in there. But did you ever notice their art remains? And the first thing we want to do to understand how people tick is their art. I'm blessed with 3 children, all who do the arts professionally, creative director, film. My son and my youngest is a professional musician. And I can tell even my friends are looking at me, when they were coming up, and I know what they're thinking. How are they going to, make money and live, and they have, because it's just who they are, but they have to work at it. Just because you have a natural ability in anything, that's great and you enjoy it, but then you got to take it to that next level if that's what you want to do. And if it isn't what you want to do professionally, you gave a great example to the folks at home. Look, if you want to dance, you can still dance. Not everything has to be for a job, and not everything is for something. We're trying to live our lives to the best, and I think the art is a portrayal of emotions, and allows us to kind of live through some things before we have to face them, and see how other characters dealt with, and how they use their abilities, and how they use their community, and how do I understand another culture that's not mine. Their music, their art, their literature, their films are going to inform that, and then you get to kind of walk in their shoes a little bit. And what you start to realize, this is my thoughts, the more you start to understand people from other cultures, the more you realize how much we have in common. And that's just a great thing.
Yeah, I totally agree with your answer. I'm with you on that one. Yeah, art kind of just art makes us come together in the most colorful and unexpected ways sometimes too.
Well, it was just a great pleasure being here today and speaking to your listeners and seeing Zay. So thank you very much, everyone.
Thank you so much for giving your time and energy to go through this and tell us a little bit more about yourself. I really do appreciate it. I really do.
Well, thank you, Mr. Muench. I'm sorry, I cannot call you Paul today. No, you're still my sophomore year social studies teacher. And today I totally looked at you in a different lens, and I'm so glad that you joined us in tonight's eTalks. And seeing from the comments, I see lots of, I see someone saying that they have an exam tomorrow. So it was a great time to listen to us for a great motivation. So that was awesome. And we have lots of great positive comments. So thank you so much, Mr. Muench, for giving us this presentation and joining us in eTalks tonight. And thank you, Esther, for being a wonderful, wonderful moderator. And I really appreciate both of you. And last but totally not least, I appreciate you guys, our audience, for tuning in today. And make sure to stay tuned with our next episodes next week, and follow our Instagram and Twitter, which are linked in the description box below. And see you next week, everyone. Thank you.